Welcome to the well. Sorry if we didn't check my mic earlier, but it sounds pretty good. Chris, man, awesome. We don't need to check anymore. He's doing a good job. I hope today's Father's Day, in case you missed that somewhere. Hope you got to spend some time with your father if you're able to, if that's a possibility. Kind of funny story. I can say this because my dad doesn't. I think he has internet, but he doesn't know how to use it. So I called my dad this morning. My dad will be 84 in August, and he couldn't hear, he just, I get it from him. So I don't hear well either, and he can't hear thunder. And so it's interesting having conversations with him on the phone, right? So I'm in my office at church. I called him this morning right before church started. And I'm yelling, so I had to shut the door in my office. It's 8 o'clock or something. I'm yelling into the phone. If people were outside, they're like, "What's going on in there?" Because I'm trying to talk to my dad for Father's Day. But anyways, it was you have to be there, but it's kind of comical at times. But I hope that if you had the opportunity, you got to spend some time with your dad on today. We're going to do a couple things that I want to remind you of. We've talked about starting some smaller groups. We're gonna look at if any of you, Caleb will mention this later too, just to remind you, but if any of you are interested in just kind of hanging around for a few minutes tonight and talking about that, and we don't have a lot of things ironed out, okay? It's not like we have everything mapped out and ready to go, exactly how we know what we're gonna do. But we need some input from some of you. So if you want to hang out for a few minutes afterwards, be a part of that. And here's the deal. Even in a size of, a room of 30, 40, 50, whatever, we have different numbers every night. But it's easy to just you get to sit and we worship, and that's great. And you get to hear, scripture being taught, and that's great too. Sometimes the delivery is not great, but it's great to have that, the preaching and part of it. But it's so important if you're not connected to a smaller group or a core group or a connect group or a family group or whatever you call it. It's vitally important that you are, okay? And even if you are connected to with your church that you go to on Sunday mornings or whatever, if you are connected to a group, there's nothing, biblical that's in the Bible that says you can't be connected to more than one, right? So sometimes we need more than one. So anyways, it's just we're gonna try to offer some of that. We're gonna start small and just work our way from there. We're looking at starting just a girls, ladies group, and then a guys group. I would say gentlemen, but we're not all gentlemen. So. Anyways, I would say, so a guys group and a ladies group for the first try. We may add a couples group because some of you are couples, and so we may add that as well. If we're just going to see, and it can happen however it needs to happen. We'll talk more about that later. So just be aware of that. If you can hang around, if you want to hang around for a few minutes afterwards, we would love we have the building all night, so we would love to just hang out and talk about some of those things, okay? And as Caleb mentioned earlier about the prayer cards, if you have prayer requests, please don't hesitate to write those down. You don't have to put your name on there. God knows your need, and we do meet. He and I meet either. We typically meet face-to-face. We have coffee or lunch or something on Monday, unless we're traveling or something like that. Then we do it through phone, but we meet and pray over those, and so again, you don't feel like you have to put everything on there if you don't want to, but if you have something, maybe it's a praise, maybe it's something God is really doing in a great way in your life right now, or maybe your life is just in a good spot, and as always, if you have tips for the band, you can bring that to the, I don't know why, I just wanted to show that to you, tips for the band, but anyway, so how many of you, let's get into the message tonight, that's enough announcements. How many of you have scars? Who wants to show your scars? No, I'm just kidding. I don't want you. We can compare scars. You want to compare scars? I have one right here, and I'll be glad to show anybody. No, I'm not going to show it. I was in where I'm it wasn't called middle school, it was junior high. And I was in junior high, and I was in a place where I shouldn't have been. And I was trying to jump a fence before I got into trouble. And I left a part of my flesh on the fence. So anyway, so I got a big scar right there. I have a scar right here above my eye. You can't really see it because it happened like when I was like 7 or 8 years old, and it was my brother's fault. And all I remember was just blood, so that's a visible scar. I have a scar in my neck where I had like a tumor removed, not like a tumor, it was a tumor removed from my neck. And then a couple of years ago, because my middle name is Grace, I fell like 10 feet down. My middle name is not Grace, but I fell about 10 feet at the church and onto a concrete slab floor just like this, and shattered this wrist. And shattered was actually the technical term, the medical term that the doctor used in the ER. He came in after the x-ray and he said, yeah, it's shattered. So I'm thinking he would say something more medically than that, but that was the medical term he used. So I have a scar there that you can't see real well, but so I've got some hardware in there that I'll have for the rest of my life. So we all have scars, right? We all have visible scars that we've either by just, because our older brother or sister hit us with something like I had, or maybe a poor choice you made trying to jump a fence when you didn't need to be in there, I don't know. Or just, we just have accidents, right? We have accidents and we have physical scars. But not all scars are easily seen, right? In fact, some scars, I don't know about most, but many scars aren't seen by other people at all. But they're still there, right? They're hidden, but they're still there. They're scars that we have in our lives because of maybe something that has happened in our life. Again, it may be your choice. It may not be your choice. It may be somebody else's choice, and you you face the consequences of that, or you're scarred because of that, and it stays with you, right? And even though it can't be seen by other people, it's still a scar. And here's what a scar is. Like I said, some scars are easy to spot, some not so much, but they're still every bit as much of a scar as one that are easy to see. Here's what the definition of a scar is. A scar is a mark left by a healed wound. It's a mark left, that's a visible scar. It's a mark left by a healed wound. Now, an internal or an invisible scar is kind of the same thing. We get wounded internally, right? Or we get wounded and it's invisible from other people. Other people wound us. Just different things wound us. Again, nobody else may see it. It may come out in our attitude or in our behavior, but they don't see the visible scar. So then I thought, well, what's a mark? A mark is a lasting effect after trouble. It's a blemish. We all have some blemishes, right? We all do. But praise God, we serve a God that in spite of all of our marks and our scars and our blemishes, he loves us anyways. He loves us in spite of the scars. And so when we have those, though, they're kind of embarrassing, right? Even the ones that nobody else can see, we think they can see them because we've made the poor choice. And so we think, well, I got to hide this, right? We tried to hide our scars. How do we do that? Well, if we have a physical scar, like if it's a scar, I remember when Stephen was born, this wasn't really a scar, but it was a mark. When Stephen was born, Lou Ray was just about to have Stephen, and I got asked to play in a softball tournament, which I hate softball, but it was the closest thing to baseball that I could, nobody wanted me to play baseball anymore. So they asked me to play softball. So I went and played in these softball tournaments, and these things are, if you know anything about softball tournaments, it's all day long, unless you lose 2 games, then you go home. But if you're winning, you play all day, all into the night. It's an all day affair. And I was playing shortstop, and I took a shot right at me, one hop, and it took a bad hop and hit me in the eye. I don't remember which, in the face. I think it's on this side. And the ball ended up like in right center field. I was out. I mean, I laid out. My eye swelled shut. So a couple weeks later, Lou Ray has Stephen, and here I am in the delivery room with a big black eye, right? So it left a mark, and it wasn't because she was in so much pain and she hit me. It was because I was playing softball and I had this mark, and you can't hide that. So what I tried to do was, or what she tried to do was try to put some of her makeup on there to try to cover up some of that black eye. I'm just saying, I don't wear makeup usually, but when I do, I don't make a habit of wearing makeup, but when I do, it's because I'm trying to hide a black eye that I've been given from my wife. But so we do that, right? We try to hide those things. We try to hide our scars. But we also do that with those invisible internal scars, don't we? We try to hide those in different ways. We hide them by, or we try to cover them or numb them. You know what I mean by that. We made a poor choice maybe earlier in life, or we made a poor choice recently. And so trying to get beyond that poor choice and so we're not feeling guilty about that anymore, we try to do things to mask that or to cover that or to just numb ourselves of that poor choice or that scar in our life. We try to do things that will numb the hidden scars so we won't feel the effects of those scars anymore. And we think in our minds, we try to rationalize that, but what happens is it just takes us further and further and further into being discouraged about the choice that we made. We think it's going to help us get over that, but it's not. And so as we talk about scars, the subtitle is Scars Make Us Who We Are, right? Some of the scars that we have, they make us who we are, but they don't have to define us. I don't notice where it says it's a sin to have a drink of alcohol. But let me tell you where I stand on this. This is just my opinion, okay? This is not either, like I said, it's not infallible or inerrant. It's my opinion. I think there's nothing good that can come from it because I have been scarred by alcohol. Not me personally, as far as me consuming it, but I've seen it in my family. I mean, like extensively, not just my immediate family. My mom or dad never drank, but they're about the only ones that didn't in my family. And I'm telling you, it was like the plague in my family. It was unbelievable. I'm the one, when I'm 12 years old, or I don't know how old I was pretty young, calling the police on two of my siblings because they're both drunk and they're beating each other up in the living room. And I'm there. I'm the only one there. No, my mom's there. And I'm the one, and I don't even know if we had 911 back then, but I called the police. I don't know if it was 911 or just the operator, I just had to call Sarah and, hey, get the police. I don't know, but it was a long time ago, but still. And listen, I'm not trying to make a joke of that, but that scarred me. It did. It scarred me. And so for me, I'm not going to tell you that I've never had a drink of alcohol. I will tell you with complete confidence that I've never had a drink of alcohol legally. I probably shouldn't say that since we're on camera, but I'm just saying, when I got 21 and over, I just thought, you know what? I've seen the devastation. And listen, I'm not saying that you can't within reason. I'm not saying that, okay? I'm just saying, for me personally, it's a slippery slope, and I'm not willing to go there. I'm just not, because for me, it scarred me. It has scarred me tremendously. And other people will have a drink with their dinner, and I'm around them. I don't think anything less of them. I mean, I probably thought a lot less of them anyway, so I don't think less of them. I'm just kidding. I don't think less of them because they've had I don't. I choose not. I choose not because I'm scarred by it. And I don't want to go down that path. And I know that I'm very capable of going down that path. Okay? Does that make sense? So it doesn't have to be, our scars are different. And those things that affect us are different. They're so diverse. You have things that have happened in your life, in your family, that have just rocked your world. And I don't even know what those are. But you know what they are. And they've left a scar. And sometimes I think we believe that those scars cause us, as I said earlier, they disqualify us from doing what God has called us to do. And nothing, hear me, if you hear me say nothing else, hear this, nothing could be further from the truth. God does not allow you to be so scarred that you cannot be used, I don't think, for Him, for His glory. Maybe it gives you a platform so that you can then share what happened in your life with other people. I had the rare privilege of spending an entire day with Darryl Strawberry. Now, most of you in this room have no idea who Darryl Strawberry is, and that's okay. He's a little bit older than me, played Major League Baseball. He was about 6'5", I guess, something like that. Left-handed, just had unbelievable talent. Played mostly for the Mets. Then he played for the Dodgers some, and maybe a couple other teams. He had unbelievable raw talent, but he had a serious drug problem that really just kind of cost him his career, and he really never was what they was projecting him to be. He had some great years, but he was never really met his full potential. Several years ago, he meets Christ, has this encounter with Christ, and now he's kind of a traveling evangelist. He's opened up clinics that are to get people off get them clean so they can get off drugs. But he's a traveling evangelist, and I got to spend the day with him, kind of his chauffeur. But anyways, that's okay. I didn't have to wear a hat or anything, but I was his chauffeur for one day. He was here doing our FCA, and I got to spend a day with him and just kind of talk with him about, and listen, he doesn't shy away from sharing his testimony, and I'm sure he still has struggles. He travels with somebody the whole time because for accountability purposes, he travels with somebody the whole time, and he just has a testimony that, listen, I'm sure that it could have been better if he didn't go down that path, but because he has that past, now he has this platform that he can share with people about the scars in his life that other people just don't really, I mean, they can gather, they can get it from him because he's been where some of them are. So sometimes the scars you have are there for a purpose so that you can share your faith deeper with people. Last thing, not only are they common, not only are they diverse, but scars are reminders. Look what he says in verse 21. He says, for you are credited when you sin, you are beaten for it, and you endure. But if you do good and suffer for it, you endure a gracious thing. And then he says in 21, for to this you have been called, because, just think about that. Think about that phrase. For to this you have been called. Whatever this is, whatever this scar, whatever this struggle is, whatever this difficulty is, whatever this is that's just leaving a mark on you, maybe it's a calling from God that he wants you to walk through this. I'm not saying he's causing this, but I'm saying maybe he's allowing you to walk through this. He says, for this that you have been called because Christ also suffered for you, leaving you an example so that you might follow in his steps. It's an opportunity for us to remember. Our scars remind us of something, don't they? They remind us of the stupid thing that we did that caused us to get that scar. Or they remind us the emotional scars remind us of the things that happened around us that have caused us to be scarred emotionally. We look at the scar and we remember what happened. Scars remind us. They don't define us. In Galatians 6:17, listen to what Paul says. From now on, let no one cause me trouble, for I bear on my body the marks of Jesus. What does that mean? We have the face of Jesus tattooed on our body. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe you have that. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying. But no, I don't think that's what he's talking about here. I wouldn't recommend you do that. But I think he's saying here, if we try to live like Jesus, we are going to get scars. We're going to get scars because people won't get it. People won't understand it. Remember, 1 Peter, he tells us in chapter 2 that we're a chosen race. Some translation says a peculiar people. We look a little different. We're supposed to act a little different, not because we're better, just because we're forgiven. We try to live like Jesus. Trust me. Remember, he tells us, Scripture all throughout the New Testament tells us, if you are living for Jesus, you will face persecution of some sort. Now, it may not be risking your life, but it's going to be persecution. 1 Peter in chapter 4, he says this, verse 12 and 13. Listen to this. He says, beloved, again, there's that brethren or brothers. He's talking to us. Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you as though something strange were happening to you, but rejoice insofar as you share in Christ's sufferings, that you may also rejoice and be glad in his glory when it is revealed. When it is revealed. He says, rejoice. These things are there to test us, and we are to rejoice in those. Don't be surprised at the trials. We should expect them. Don't be surprised at scars when they come. We should expect them. The closer we get to Jesus, the farther from the world we should look. The closer we get to Jesus, the farthest from the world we should look. People won't know what you do. They don't know that, but they're leaving you scarred. So the next few weeks, next week, we're going to look at the purpose of scars. What is the purpose of them? What does it mean to remind us? Remind us of what? We're going to look at that next week. And then we're going to look at how we move beyond the scars. Because listen, as I said earlier, we all have them. And some of them are really hard to get over. Some of them take a long time, maybe even a lifetime to get over because of just how it happens in our lives. I was talking earlier with somebody, and we were just comparing notes about how weird our families are. And I love my family. I do. But man, yeah, you ought to come Thanksgiving with me sometime, and you'll think, wow, really? Not all of them, but I mean, like, I can't say everything because some of my family are watching, I think. But I know my sister is, but at least she better be. She tells me she does. Maybe she's lying to me. I don't know. I'll get a text from her here in a few minutes. But we listen, we all have those people in our lives, right? How do we move beyond those scars so that we don't have to live like that anymore? There's a purpose for it. But the purpose is not to stay there. The purpose is to move beyond it. So here's what I want to leave you with. And you just stay in your seat. Listen, and we don't do it all. I don't know. We may do that occasionally. But here's what I want you to think about. And if you need to spend some time in prayer about some of these things, please do so. I say this a lot when I get to preach on Sunday mornings at church. I talk about, there's really nothing spiritual about coming to the altar, and this is not really an altar, I mean, it's the bottom of the stage here, but there's really not anything extra spiritual about that. I mean, not really. But there could be something really special about it. About just coming down and just laying it before the Lord. I mean, you can do that at your seat. You can do that at your chair. You can do it kneel at your chair. However you want to do that, that's fine. But I want to leave you with a couple of things for you to just meditate on for a couple minutes. these questions will be on the screen, but think about this. What are some scars that you've been left with? What are some things that have scarred you? I've told you some of mine, but we all have them, don't we? We all have things that in our past, or maybe not too distant past, that have really taken its toll on us. And it's really scarred us. It's really hurt us. I've told you before, I'm a recovering people pleaser, which means I'm not there yet. And when people say things, which hasn't happened a lot, but when people say things about me, and really not so much about me, but they say things about my family, I get scarred by that. I get angry, which is probably not a good thing either, but I also get scarred. I mean, it's just another lash kind of scarring me. What is it that scars you? What scar are you dealing with right now that Satan or God is trying to teach you?